Well, good afternoon or good morning, depending on when you're listening. Welcome to another episode of the HSEQ Leaders Podcast. We have Poonam Shah on today with us. Poonam's held both global roles in safety and as well as sustainability. I'll let her talk through her career, and I'll also put the LinkedIn link, I should say, in the show notes. But Poonam, welcome.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me on today.
Poonam, obviously I know about you and a bit about your background, but talk me through your career and where you are or where you've gotten to today.
Sure. I'll start off a little bit from when I was in high school, just to set the scene about how this has all come about. My mum was very influential in what I do, and I took a lot of weight in what she said. I put a lot of weight in what she tells me, and I was eventually going to go down the path of majoring in business. And She said to me, "Poonam, if you go into business, you can't really go into sciences later on in life if you really want to do something different. So why don't you go about it a different way?" So there I went, took the most difficult class in high school. Really came to the top unless I really wanted to. So that kind of set the scene for me, that if it was a challenge, then I would do it. And then lo and behold, to actually study therapy. So I spent a year in the UK studying physio, decided it wasn't really for me. I learned a lot better hands-on than I did in terms of trying to cram things. Then I came to Australia in 2004, I think it was, and started doing my university degree. So I completed a bachelor's in food science and technology, and then went off into the world to really focus on quality in the food manufacturing and food industry. Moving on a little bit from that, I then decided that I wanted to move out of the food industry. It's still an industry that's growing and not quite where I wanted to be. So I walked down the path of going into logistics for the Chevron Gorgon gas project, so working for Linfox Logistics at the time, again in a quality role. And then from there, I went into underground support structures, blasting and galvanizing. So then taking on more the manufacturing and production side of things, again for quality. So I did a couple of years in these quality roles, and then joined Schenck Process quite early in my career in 2014. So I've been there nearly 10 years, which is now, as you know, got bought out. So Schenck Process Mining is now owned by Sandvik, which has been a fantastic move. So coming into the role in quality again, taking over the role of quality coordinator for Australia. So suddenly the footprint had expanded. We were across 5 different states and multiple operations, including production and site services as well. Stayed in the role for about 4 years and thought, right, it's time for a new challenge. I need to find what's next. I had actually decided to move on to another role, and 2 weeks into when I'd given my intent to resign, I had a meeting with the CFO and the COO at the time, and they saw something in me that I wasn't even aware of. They saw a side of strategy and leadership that I wasn't aware I was demonstrating those behaviors. I thought I was just doing what I needed to do. And they said that there is a role that had come up in occupational health and safety as a business partner. And so I was like, well, that's really strange, considering I don't have any real experience in health and safety. You know, working in quality, you're always working with health and safety people, but no hands-on experience. And I was very open about that I don't have the background, I don't have the technical skills and knowledge. And their mindset was different, that they wanted someone that's strategic, that can set the future direction, that can really see outside of the day-to-day safety. What do we need to do? What do we need to achieve? And how do we do that? How do we implement projects? How do we take out the roadblocks? So that's how I stepped into my first health and safety role. I was fortunate enough to be able to build a team that really had the technical expertise, which was fantastic. So we were covering both the strategic, the tactical, and then the operational piece from the day-to-day point of view as well. Went back to uni, did my postgrad in OC Health and Safety, and learned a lot along the way. It was a very steep learning curve over the next 2 years. And then I stepped into a managerial role with the same company. And then again, at that time, we were coming up into post-COVID. So we'd had the shutdowns happening in 2019, and being an essential supplier to mining, we had to keep our operations up and running in Australia. So both in Perth and Melbourne. And at the same time, we were also designing our new site for Perth, where we were moving our operations from Henderson to a new site in Jandakot. So it was a very interesting 2.5 years in that role. Keeping on top of all the rules and regulations for different states, different clients. We had people going onto site. So, moving targets in terms of what we had to do. And then coming into 2021, there was a global role that opened up with HSEQ Process, again, more in the strategic space, in the health, safety, environment, and quality, with a focus on developing our sustainability area as well. So I took that role in 2021, working and reporting directly to CEO, which is a fantastic experience. Really having that ownership of how we do things and that decision making on a global scale, so across 27 different countries. And then late last year, Sandvik bought out HSEQ Process Mining, which I think, again, was a great, fantastic move. And then last year, December, I moved into a sustainability and EHSQ role for Sandvik Global in the stationary crushing and screening division. So that's how I've come about into this position where I'm now.
I think that's a great synopsis of your career. And it's also interesting, I guess, the steps that you took, because, we often see people coming from different backgrounds, but rare to see from a quality background and into safety. And now, I guess on that note, sustainability. We know this is sort of the future, I think, in the direction, but talk us through, I guess, sustainability and where your passion lies there.
So I'll start off with saying that I never, first of all, thought I'd ever get into health and safety. I always thought people that worked in health and safety were a special breed like nurses and teachers. They would have to be really passionate. Little did I know that getting into a role like that would really actually drive that side of me that I didn't know I had. And then coming into a sustainability role, the scope just expands, and it just becomes a huge piece where you're bringing in the people, the planet, and profit, or ESG, or however you want to call it. And all of a sudden, you've gone from really just focusing on health and safety of people to then talk about communities, the environment, the governance piece. So the big one, and again, this has been a very steep learning curve for me in terms of sustainability, because coming into a player like Sandvik, that is a publicly listed company, they're headquartered in the European Union. The reporting and governance requirements are very stringent. And year on year, they're just getting more detailed, more in depth. Next year, we've got the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive coming out, which is going to be a huge game changer for a lot of businesses. And it really changes how we look at the whole topic of sustainability. So no longer is it just a pillar that stands on its own. It actually runs across the whole business. That how do we build a business that is now sustainable, that is investable, that is built around the people and the community, and where whether it's attracting and retaining talent. This is becoming a very key player in everything that we do, and how we design this really is going to determine how the business of the future works. So for me, it's again been a huge learning curve, but it's been really interesting, because a lot of the things that we talk about in health and safety and quality, in environmental, the compliance piece, this is where it all really starts to come together. But then it pulls in your finance teams, your human resources, your procurement. So this goes across the whole spectrum of the business. So for me, this is a really exciting time to be in a business that is at the forefront of sustainability. And not only do we have to meet the legal requirements, but now we have to be the leaders in sustainability. And that's something that I'm really, really passionate about. And now looking at how we can do that even on a division level, where it's, boots on ground, where we are not a mining company, but we are supplying to companies that have these targets. And how do we now influence that change?
Absolutely. And I think I've even said this to you before. It's great to see that. Sustainability and having these roles in Western Australia from a global business as well. Like a lot of, Australian businesses push it all to the East Coast. So it's great to see that footprint, that position could be open to someone in WA, because I think a lot of people do have an interest in there, but they don't perhaps have a clear career progression in order to get there, because it's so new, right?
That's right.
And it's why it's a difficulty to recruit for sustainability roles as well, because it's not a standard progression. I guess on that note, you said you didn't ever see yourself getting into safety. You've been in typically what has been a very male-centric and male-dominated industry at times. You've also made, and something that I've always sort of said to you as well, made very good strategic career moves, I'd say, in your career. What's the advice that you would give to someone, entering the career, or your younger self, Poonam? I mean, obviously don't do physio, but after that, what does that look like?
I think one of the key things is finding your allies and finding the people who can see things in you that you can't see. I think sometimes we get bogged down in what we're doing, and we sort of just become day to day, and we don't realize that we probably have strengths that we can't see. So really building that network of peers and mentors that are then really pulling you out of the day to day to look at the bigger picture. So really find the people who you look up to and ask them if they would be your mentor. I think that's the biggest one for me. Is I wouldn't have been on this journey if I didn't have the people there that were actually seeing this in me and then mentoring me to these roles as well. Some of these are development roles. They were not roles that I knew that I was ready for. It was more about, you've got the skill, some of the skills and the passion. This is now, how do we elevate you into that position? So build your network. The other one is, and I think this is a key one, I've worked with a lot of different people, different areas, come with the solutions. If you can see the problem, it may not be in your area, and sometimes I know it's hard to say, this isn't in my area and I need to step out of it, but come with the solutions. If there's anything that will drive your career forward, will show people your skills as a leader, as a thinker, is really think outside of the box, where it's not clear how do we move forward, whether you're talking to the CEO or the managing director or the president of your business. Come with those solutions. No matter how you may think, well, they're going to really laugh at me, or they're going to think, what am I talking about? Do I know what I'm saying? There's a high chance that you, being an expert in what you do, we think very differently, I think, as well. Health and safety, quality people, we come through a very different background compared to traditional roles. We have a problem-solving capability. That's the time to use it. So that's a big one to me. And also learning to manage up. That, especially when you're in junior roles, it is a challenge. You don't know when to speak. You don't know whether you should speak, but have a little bit of that courage and speak up. If you're in the right environment, you will thrive.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's great advice, because that's one of, when we look at, I guess, people stepping into leadership positions, it's one of the first things that we often get asked from a recruitment point of view is, can this person manage up? Have they had experience? And they might not be ready, but have they had that exposure, or are they just giving advice and not giving solutions? Because it's one thing to be like, I'm an advisor, I just give advice, but being able to add that value, right? You've obviously been a hiring manager over the years. What do you look for, Poonam, when you're looking to hire people, obviously at different levels and outside of what we've just discussed there? I mean, what qualities stand out for you when you're building a team?
So for me, and this quote stands out to me, I don't know where it comes from, right? It says, join those who can join the sections of a canoe, so that you're all going in the right direction. Now, I have skills, but I also have areas that I'm not strong at. So when I'm looking at building a team, the first thing is their mindset, their personality. For different roles, I need different types of personalities. So if I want someone to go out and work with our teams in the workshop, I need someone that's got that energy, that's got that engagement, that's got the personality to be able to do that and engage in a meaningful way and bring the information back. If I want someone to be working specifically on certain projects, and they need to be working with a global team, then I'm looking at their characteristics in terms of dealing with people from different backgrounds, different cultures, different beliefs. So for me, it's really what the role is based around, but majority comes back to what soft skills they bring. And then the other thing is I also look at people who remember that we are doing all of this centered around people. We are in a role that is centered around people. So what are their skills like with people? I traditionally, I've met safety people that are very focused on what we do behind the desk. And when we go out there, we're seen as the police. And that's something, you know, I've driven very hard to change when I was in a manager role, to really change the mindset, not of the teams, but of how people are viewing safety in our workshops and in our facilities. So it's really about, sorry, go on.
No. You're absolutely right. I mean, this is again something that we hear a lot. You know, it's just being able to change that paradigm. Do you think it has come along? You know, in your career over the years, let's say last 10 years, do you think you've seen a change in general? Or do you think that those sort of mindset, you know, the traditional mindset of what people used to think safety as being, are still pervasive and existent in the industry?
I think to a certain extent, maybe there is in some parts of the industries, but I think mainly with the younger people, younger generation coming through, their mindset is very different. So we're not holding on to how things were done before. We're looking at ways to do things differently. We know the world is very rapidly changing, and we have to keep up with that change, which means that people coming to workforce now have to be more capable of change and handling change better. So what used to work before, where, you know, I remember this very clearly, John, when I was working in quality, I had a very good relationship with the production teams. And the first day I took on the health and safety role in that same production team, as soon as they saw me, I saw that, which means my safety glasses go on. And that was a challenge for me. I said, I can do one of two things. I can go out there and, you know, have a conversation of why you're not wearing your safety glasses, you know what you need to do, you know, the traditional very, I need to speak with your supervisor. Or the alternative is, I know these people, I know how to connect with them, I've worked with them day in, day out, maybe I'll take a different approach. So again, I am seeing the change coming through, and I think it's changing quite drastically as well. But I think we've still got a long way to go, because there is still, I think, a little bit of that hangover from what safety used to be, and whether that's just in people's mindset or if we're still seeing some of it in the industry. But I think it's changing.
Yeah, I'd agree with that as well. Across the board, there are people, well, there are some businesses that perhaps aren't on that journey either, and they might want that. Do you know what I mean? They might want the traditional side. So yeah, but in terms of evolution, look, we touched on sustainability. Where do you see the profession which you have found or has found you? Where do you see that evolving in the future?
So yeah, I really see this health and safety, environmental quality piece really turning into sustainable business. For me, that forms the basis of a sustainable business. We have very good processes, procedures, all of that, but now we need a point of difference. And our point of difference comes in how we design our products, how we interact with our customers, how are we innovating? And a lot of that is now driven through the sustainability piece. People want, you know, equipment that has lower energy consumption, uses less raw materials, or whatever it is. There's a lot of different facets to this. And for me, I think the future of health and safety, environment, and quality is really going to merge into sustainable business. And I think you had Ivan on one of your podcasts, and he was talking about really having those specialist roles. And he's spot on. We still, this is my point of view, we still need people in the sustainable business world that are strategic, and then having your specialists that are really sitting under those different parts. So I look at it as, yes, a health and safety specialist, you've got your governance and quality specialist, and then you've got your environmental specialist, but really they're all coming into that umbrella of sustainable business. And I think if you can work through that and work through what are the risk profiles, the risk management process for this, how do we handle it, what is the future, what is the development, so how do we connect? So I see us as becoming the super connectors in the business. So if I look at the likes of Sandvik, you know, 40,000 people, that's a lot of people to know what they're doing. And we have touch points with a lot of people across the business, maybe compared to some other areas that are working quite independently. And if we end up being those super connectors that are actually bringing together the thought and the people, the plans and the strategy together, that's how I see this role actually evolving from a doing to really doing the connecting.
I think that's the connecting piece is brilliant. And I think there might have been a gap prior, prior to this sort of development, because you're absolutely right, moving the sustainability needle, where a lot of safety professionals might have tapped out at a certain level. It would be difficult to properly get the, I guess, C-suite positions. I personally see in the not too distant future, sustainability really sitting in a C-suite position, and potentially, because it having so many touch points across multiple divisions of a business and across a whole business life cycle, really opening those positions for more senior leadership as well from that, which is an exciting prospect for someone entering the industry as well.
Yes, I think there's going to be very clear pathways for people now. And it's still pretty fresh. It's still very new. There are people that are specialized in certain areas of sustainability, but there is a lot more question marks than there is answers on what this is going to look like, especially with the fast changing landscape, whether you're looking at legislation. So when I say EU and, Australia is trying to catch up, I think we've got a few years to go. And then when you look at what is driving it, the customers, the consumers, the people that we partner with, our suppliers, our internal people, that landscape is very quickly changing. And I think for me personally, it's something that you constantly have to keep on top of. And there's no right degree that you can do or no right course that you can do. It is going to be more about making those connections, meeting people, and then learning what's going to work in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Conscious of time, Poonam, but also conscious that this is a leadership podcast. So what's leadership to you, as we're tailing towards the end of the discussion? What is leadership to you, and how do you lead?
I look at leadership as a role of a teacher. You don't need to have a leadership title to lead. It's really about how you can solve those problems, but how do you bring people on a journey with you, regardless of whether you have that title or not, and how do you motivate people? So for me, it's really creating that environment for the next generation of leaders coming through. How do we create those leaders? What kind of personality and characteristics do they need? But it's also about being able to let them flex their leadership skills. So the best advice that I ever got is, Poonam, if you step in and fix the problem every time, how do you then promote your people to flex their leadership capabilities, to stretch their leadership capabilities? And that was a light bulb moment for me. So there are times when I will not step in. So it's knowing when to step in, and when to provide that support, and knowing when to let your people go and just let them do what they need to do. But ensuring that they know that they've got an environment that if they fail, it's safe to fail.
Yeah.
Question, but it's safe to fail environment. Obviously, in health and safety, we don't want to create an environment where you're creating risks, but rather we want to take opportunities where we try different things. And if it doesn't work, then we change how we do it. So from my point of view, it is really letting go. There are things that are going to do people differently to you. And I think as a leader, sometimes it's a challenge that you hand it over to someone to go, okay, I want you to go and do this. And they're going to do it in their own way, and letting them do that as well. So, and being accountable yourself, and being honest, open, transparent, but also showing that vulnerability to teach them that leadership doesn't mean that you always have the answers. That you have to go and engage with people to learn.
I think that ability, ability to fail, obviously safely, is so underrated as well, because that's one of those things where, retaining perhaps control of a situation. Obviously, you don't want, safe to fail in that, something actually bad does happen, but allowing people the option to be able to have that runway to learn by themselves, right? Because that's how we learn. We learn by doing, for the most part. And I think from a leadership point of view, that's how you do get that succession planning, because it's all well and good if you've held someone's hand for 4 or 5 years, but it's not doing them any favors. It's not doing them any favors either. There's already not enough hours in the week, right?
Yeah, and that's the other thing is really having those plans in place for your people. Sometimes they were like me when I started, that I didn't know that I had some of these capabilities, and it's then how do you engage them to develop their capabilities in that space as well? What are they interested in? How do we develop them? If they want to step outside of the role that they're doing now into something completely different, how do we still process? Because a leader creates other leaders, right? That's the hallmark of a great leader, is creating the next generation of leaders. You don't just need everyone to follow you. At some stage, you need other people to overtake you, and to take other people on a journey as well. So
brilliant. No, look, that's so true and so underrated. Poonam, thank you so much. As I said, I didn't want to take up too much time, and we're recording this just before the Christmas break, so we've all, no doubt, all flat out with things in the lead up to Christmas. But Poonam, thank you so much for getting on. It's I think your career progression and the steps that you've made. Again, I'll put a link in your bio, but is really, I guess, great for a lot of people starting into the career as well within safety and sustainability, and some very sage advice that you've passed on as well.
thank you so much, John. I really appreciate you having me on.
No worries. Well, look, we'll reconvene in a few years' time when sustainability isn't a bigger thing. We said, "See, we told you so," to the listeners. But thank you again so much, and yeah, we'll chat soon.
Thanks, John. See you.
Thanks a lot for joining us for another episode of the Safety Leaders podcast. If you enjoyed it, make sure you reach out and connect with myself as well as Sundstrom Recruitment on LinkedIn. We are the specialists health and safety recruitment in WA. Looking forward to the next episode and maybe getting to know you. Cheers.